So what is pattern making basically? What is it? What is pattern making? What is it? What is pattern making? What is pattern making? If you guys are going to stay like this, then we are going to stay like this for a very long time. Okay. So you need to respond. If you don't know, just tell you don't know. If you know, just give me the answer. If you don't know, just tell me that you don't know. You need to respond. Yes. So what is pattern making?
Pattern making is a process of transforming a design into the flat patterns and drafting them out. And pattern method can be two types: flat method and draping method.
Okay. Okay. So pattern making, it kind of constitute of certain rules and techniques, right? Hmm. So when it comes to pattern making, yes, of course, pattern making is of two types. We can do pattern making in two different ways. Like one is flat pattern method, and the second method is like draping method, right? So in these two ways, we can develop pattern for a design. So pattern making is basically converting a design. Because you will be having a sketch, right? You will have a design with you. So based on the design, based on the requirements, based on the design, you will be converting that particular design into a flat version of it, right? So that is what a pattern is. You can convert it into a pattern in two different ways. One is flat pattern method, and the other one is draping method. So when it comes to pattern making, whether it is draping, whether it is flat pattern method, when it comes to pattern making, we can just develop these pattern making into two different sections actually. Okay, the pattern construction can be divided into two different sections. So the one is like the measuring part. Okay, one is like the measuring part. In order to develop the pattern, you need to know the measurements, right? You need to know as a designer or as an individual to develop a pattern, you should know you should have the measurements with you, right? You should have, whether it is draping, whether it is flat pattern method, you should know the measurements. So you might ask me why measurements are needed when you are going to do draping. Okay, so draping is basically done on a body form, right? Not basically. Draping is done on a body form, right? So body form is available in different sizes. Okay. Body form is available in different sizes like US 6, US 8, US 10, US 12, US 14, like that, different sizes. In different sizes, body form is available. So is it okay to do draping and developing a pattern using a US 8 size body form when actually your client is of a US 12 size? No, right. And body forms are basically man-made ones. Based on a standard sizing system, they have created these body forms. So as an individual, as a human being, your size can vary from the actual body form size measurements, right? So you can, with the help of the measurements, you can create certain adjustments on your body form. So for all these purposes, it is really necessary for you guys to know about the actual measurements of your client. So whether you are supposed to develop a US 8 pattern, whether you are supposed to develop a US 10 pattern or a 12 or 14 pattern. So measurements are really important when it comes to pattern making. So the one thing, one of the major factors that you're supposed to be very careful when it comes to pattern making is that measurements. Okay, measurements, it's really important. Okay, the second factor. Okay, the second factor or the second part when it comes to second important part when it comes to pattern construction, that is technique, how to develop. So now you know all the measurements. Now you have the measurements with you. So when it comes to whether it is draping, whether it is flat pattern method, whatever it is, when it comes to pattern making, you you should know the technique, right? Even if it is draping, you need to know how to drape the fabric, right? How to go to pin the push pins, where to give the dot, how to drape it, how to convert that piece of fabric into a pattern, right? You need to know the technique. Whether it is flat pattern method or whether it is draping, you need to know the technique. Without knowing it, it's just a bunch of numbers that is there with you. You're helpless. It is not going to convert into a pattern. So you need to know the technique. You need to know the measurements. So these two things are really important, or we can just divide pattern construction into two important sectors, like one is measurements and one is technique. Okay, so pattern making is the process of converting a design into a flat form. That is what pattern making is. And you can do this in two different ways. One is the flat pattern method, and the second one is draping method. So the draping will be done on a muslin fabric, using a muslin fabric, using a body form. And once the draping is done and all the cutting is done, you will trace this pattern into a piece of paper or a pattern making paper or chart paper. Then you will have the pattern with you. Okay. So pattern making can be is of two types: flat pattern method and draping method. So flat pattern method is done by, what is the difference between flat pattern method and draping method? What is the difference between flat pattern method and draping method? What is the difference between flat pattern method and draping method? Yes. What is the difference between flat pattern method? As I said, I need to know the answer. Okay. You're supposed to tell me what it is, what the difference is. And it was actually the second round revision. We did a revision test. You got your marks. And soon, on 25th, your model term one examination is going to start on 25th. So yes, everything is at the corner. So we need to know. So yes, what is the difference between? So pattern making is of two different. We can do pattern making in two different ways: flat pattern method and draping method. So what is the difference between flat pattern method and draping method? So what is the difference between flat pattern method and draping method? That is the question. Patch pattern method and draping method. Sana, you're not audible, dear. Yes, Steffi.
I mean, flat pattern, flat pattern method, the measurements of the body form are taken, and
Body form or body from measurements from body or body form. Yes, is taken.
and they are made to fit the body form. Draping is directly done or is more a creative approach, and the cloth is folded or artistically arranged on a body form.
Basically, the muslin fabric is
Draped.
draped on a body form in a certain way, following different the basic rules and regulations. Hmm? And after once everything is done, then the pattern is traced onto a piece of paper. That is how draping is done. Whereas when it comes to flat pattern method, we take measurements directly from a body, from a person, or from a body form. Then by following different techniques of pattern making, we develop a pattern on a piece of paper. Hmm? Yes. So the most common method that we follow now is a block method. So what is a block method? So we talked about flat pattern method. We talked about draping method. What is this block method? It is not a different technique or way of creating pattern. It is a more easier way to develop a pattern. If you know what is a block and if you know what is a pattern, then it is really easy to answer this particular question. Block method. So I will tell you what is block method. Okay. So you know what is a block, right? You know what is a block. The basics, skirt, basic. 1 minute. So, is the screen visible? Is the board visible? Is the board visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, here you can see three options like A, B, and C, right? Three options are there, A, B, and C. Which one of the following is a block and which one is a pattern? Which one is a block and which one is a pattern? A, B, and C is there. So which one is the block and which one is the pattern?
C is the block.
C is the block. What about others? Okay. So according to Steffi, C is the block. C is actually pattern. Okay. C is actually a pattern. C is actually a pattern. And A is the block. A is the block. So block, the definition for block is block or slopper. You can use any of the two words, block or slopper. So it is basically the term which is used to define the very basic set of pattern pieces, that is basic bodies, basic skirt, basic sleeve, basic trouser, all these things. And another speciality of block is that using block, we develop patterns for different styles. Okay, using a block, we develop a pattern. So the basic set of, basic set of pattern pieces are called blocks or floppers, using which we develop patterns for different styles. Okay.
Ma'am,
Yes, dear.
but in block method, it is written that seam allowances are already calculated before cutting.
Seam
So,
allowances are already calculated before cutting. Before cutting the fabric. Okay.
yes, ma'am. So I thought you're drawing the seam allowances
No,
that like.
I will show you. Okay. So this, in this image, in the third image, this is the seam allowance, right? So seam allowance will not be calculated when if it is a block. Okay. So block is the basic one. Pattern will be having seam allowance. Okay. Pattern will be having seam allowance. So the concept behind block method is that we will be having all these blocks: basic skirt, basic bodies, basic sleeve, and all. So the construction of the basic, whatever style you want to develop, first you need to develop the basic set of patterns. Okay. Then by manipulating it, by altering it, we develop it into different styles. So first, you're supposed to develop the basic part. Your first the basic part needs to be done. So the block, in block method, the thing is that you will be having a set of block with you, like block basic skirt will be there, basic sleeve will be there, basic bodies will be there, double darted or single darted. So it is that you don't need to do the first set, that is developing of basic structure. You already have that. You just need to trace it onto another paper and then you need to manipulate it. That is what it is. So in block method, that is what it is. You will be using, instead of doing the whole process, you will be using the blocks and then you will be manipulating it to create the pattern. So that is what it is. Okay. So what is a block? Block will be having a few general information. and it will not be having the seam elements. Okay. When it comes to pattern, pattern will be having all the information that is necessary for constructing for constructing a garment. All the information which is necessary while cutting the fabric and constructing the garment. All the informations will be there. Okay. Hmm? Yes. So let's just see that. Okay. Now we have a plain page. So now let's talk about block. So you know what a block is, right? The basic set of patterns. Basic set of patterns. Yes. Now let's see what all informations will be there on a block or a slopper. Block or a slopper. Two terms are used. Okay, so block or slopper. Okay, so this is a block or a slopper. So what all informations will be there on a block or a slopper? So first one, name. That is whether it is basic skirt, whether it is basic bodies, whether it is basic sleeve, whether it is double dotted, whether it is single dotted, all these informations will be about this. So that is the name. Whether it is basic bodies, double dotted or single dotted, whether it is basic skirt, whether it is basic sleeve, the name will be there on a block. The second information which will be there is like size. Okay, size, whether it is 30, whether it is 32, whether it is 34, whether it is 36, whether it is US or whether it is UK measurement. So information regarding the size will be there on a block. The third information which will be there is like grain line. Okay, grain line. So this is the symbol which is used to denote the grain line, which represents grain line. Okay. So the symbol which is used for grain line, this one is it. Okay, this one is the simple. So there is a part like symbols and abbreviations in your textbook. So please refer to that and please go through all the symbols and abbreviations. So questions can come from that part. Okay. So grain line, the symbol for grain line is this one. Okay. So if it is like this, it means if the symbol is like this, like straight, then it means the grain line is straight. You're supposed to keep it straight. Okay, if it is, if the simple comes like this, then it means you're supposed to cut it in bias or diagonal. Okay, if the grain line comes like this on the pattern, then it means it is cross. You're supposed to cut it cross. Okay, for example, I will just show you. So if it is a straight grain line. If it is a straight grain line, sorry. If it is a straight grain line, so this is a single darted basic bodies. Okay, this is a single darted basic bodies. So if the grain line is straight, then it will be marked like this. Okay, the mark will be like this. If it is cross, the grain line will be like this. Okay. If it is bias or diagonal, then the cross or the grain line will be like this. Okay. So straight, this is a grain line. So in a block or a slopper, all these informations will be mentioned. What name? That is whether it is a basic skirt pattern, basic bodice pattern, or whether it is a basic sleeve pattern. All this, the name will be mentioned. Then the size will be mentioned. Grain line will be mentioned. Okay. Next, let's talk about pattern. Okay. Now let's talk about pattern. What all informations will be there on a pattern? Any idea about what all informations will be there on a pattern? Now we know what all will be there on a block or a slopper. So tell me about pattern. So the basic informations like name will be there, size will be there, grain line will be there, and of course, seam allowance will be there. Seam allowance will be there. Then center front or center back will be marked. Style number. You know what is a style number, right? I mentioned about this in the last class. So style number will be there. For example, AB002, or as I said, MG hash 001, like that. You can just style it any way you like. So style number will be there. Pattern piece. Okay, that is name. Basically, name will be there. Then date will be there when you constructed the pattern. So date will be there. Then notch mark will be there. You know what is a notch mark, right? I explained it in the last class. So notch mark will be there. So all these informations will be there on a pattern. Okay. All these informations will be there on a pattern. So name, size, grain line, seam allowance, center front, center back, style number, date, notch mark, everything will be marked on a pattern. Okay, everything will be marked on a pattern. So if it is a special fabric, okay, if it is a special fabric or a directional fabric, you know what is a directional fabric, like velvet. Velvet is a directional fabric, and fabric with a certain kind of prints or patterns. or is having a direction. Those are directional fabric. So in case of directional fabric, a simple like cut in this direction only will be there. Okay, cut in one direction or this direction, just like that, it will be marked in order to create a uniform pattern. Okay, designs. All these things will be mentioned on your pattern. I hope you guys are noting everything down. Okay. So all these informations will be there on a pattern, whereas a few basic informations will be there on it. Only the basic informations will be marked on a block or a slopper. That is size, then name, and the grain line will be marked on it. Apart from that, nothing will be marked on a block. Yes. So why? I have a question for you guys. Okay. And you guys are supposed to answer it. So why? So Steffi told me that draped, you are the one, right? Draped method is a creative method. Yes, it is true. So it is a creative way of pattern making. Okay. It's a creative method. Okay. And it needs a lot of skill, and we can just easily develop, a pattern using a draping method if you are a skilled person. If you are a skilled person, you can just easily develop pattern. You need to be skilled. Okay. You need to be that much experience to develop a pattern, but everything will be like up to point. Everything will be perfect when it is a draping method. But you need to be a skilled person. You need to have the experience. It is really a creative method. Okay, you can just do anything. You can just easily play with the fabric. Then why pattern method is the widely used method for pattern making? Why most of the people prefer flat pattern method when it comes to pattern making? Why is it like that? When you can just easily develop pattern using draping method, when it is a creative method, and when you can just simply play with the fabric and you can just come up with any styles when it is a draping method. Why flat pattern method is widely used for pattern making? What is the reason? What is the reason behind it? What is the reason for it? We discussed actually the last class or the class before that one. This one we have discussed it in the class. Not like this, but we talked about it. So why flat pattern method is widely used? We discussed this in another format, in the form of a question. Okay. So you know this one. I don't know whether you know or not, but we have already discussed it in the class.
Time consuming.
One is that time consuming. Draping is a time consuming method. Okay. So when it comes to mass production, when it comes to ready to wear collections and all, it is not okay, right? It's really time consuming. Draping is a time consuming process, and you just can't stand there and drape each and every single garment, right? It is a time consuming process. So that is one thing. Yes. What is the other reason? So as I said, when it comes to draping, as Steffi said, draping is a time consuming process. And the other thing is that it is not like you will come up with the correct pattern in the first try itself. You need to be really experienced and skillful when it comes to draping. Okay, if not that, we're going to make it correct in the first try itself. So you need to be that much experienced and skillful when it comes to draping. But in pattern making, but in flat pattern method, you just need to understand the technique, right? If you know the technique, using the basic measurements, you can just develop a pattern. You just need to understand. So flat pattern method is kind of easy to understand and easy to apply. So that is another reason. So one is like draping is really time consuming. The second is like flat pattern method is really easy to understand. And it is suitable for mass production. As when it comes to draping, each and every single time, based on the way we drape, based on where we uh, pin the fabric, the pattern can vary. Okay, it can vary depending on the way we drape it. Okay, where we pin the fabric, and based on all these factors, it can vary. But when it comes to flat pattern method, the pattern will be accurate, it will be consistent and all. So the consistency and accuracy is there when it comes to flat pattern method, because we do have that pattern. So we will be using the same pattern over and over, right? So it is, the reason is consistency and accuracy. So consistency and accuracy, easy to understand. Then draping is really time consuming. Then yes, a flat pattern method is the easiest and fastest method that we already know. Okay, so and when it comes to pattern making, we will be having a set of blocks, and we just need to manipulate these blocks, and we can just easily develop pattern of different styles, right? So yes, these are the reasons why flat pattern method is the most suitable one when it comes to not mostly people use flat pattern method rather than draping method. Okay, is that clear? Is that clear? Any doubts? Any doubt regarding anything that we discussed so far? Anything? So I want you guys to note down whatever we discussing, okay, in this particular session, because when we discussed this particular chapter, it was, we concentrated more on the practical part, right? We concentrated more on the practical part. And now as the exam is of MCQ format, I will, in this revision sessions, I will be preparing you to answer MCQ questions. So we will be digging deep. Okay. So I want you guys to note down whatever we are discussing. And I want you guys to do your own revision part also, so that you will be ready to answer all the questions that I put forward. Okay. Okay. So we discussed about different two parts of pattern construction, that is measuring and techniques. We discussed about two different methods of pattern making, that is draping and the flat pattern method. And we also answered one question, that is why flat pattern method is widely used for pattern construction. And we also discussed what is a draping method. Draping method is the oldest, it is a creative method, and it is the oldest pattern making method. Okay, and it is considered as the creative approach. Muslin will be used for draping, and muslin is available. Muslin is actually a plain woven unbleached cotton fabric. It is available in different ways. Okay, we will discuss that later. And we also, now we also know the difference between a block and a pattern. And we also know what all informations will be there on a block and a pattern, right? Okay. study till here. So Thursday, it is a holiday, right? So Saturday, we will be having class, and I want you guys to study till this fourth part. Okay. Okay. No class test, nothing. I will be asking you questions, and you are supposed to answer. So learn till here. Okay. So then I will decide whether I should continue with this revision or not. Okay, guys. So it's already time for us to wind up the session. So please do revise till whatever we discussed today. Okay. Okay then. Bye.